struggle to demilitarize the world, to bring peace into the language and culture of your generation, which is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And I wish you huge success. You spoke about being at Pugwash, where Joe Rothblatt worked and got the Nobel Peace Prize. Well, I had a little something to do with it because I was president of the International Peace Bureau, and we nominated Joe for the Peace Prize. His wife was a victim of the Holocaust, and he worked as a scientist in the atomic field and turned around when he realized what he was doing and became the world's leading anti-nuclear activist, basically. Brilliant, wonderful human being. And I love The Lion Queen, and I think you've got to, I don't know if you saw today's New York Times, but the front page story is about how The Lion King is charging the highest prices for any play in New York. And you can have a letter to the editor in tomorrow's Times and say, if we're The Lion Queen, we wouldn't charge such high prices. So all I can say is, keep on keeping on. And Betty's absolutely right. We've got to take on the war system because it's no good for women, men, children, babies, and other living things. It has not solved any problems. I think the last just war was the Second World War, which was more than a half a century ago, and none of the wars since then have been justified. And if we would install or integrate the concept of peace education into every teacher training school in the world and every school in the world, I think we would see the end of weaponized violence. And the word conflict is perfectly okay. You have to speak of violent conflict, not just, excuse my back, and not just conflict. I mean, conflicts are important, and they don't have to end up in violence. Thank you for being, and thank you for doing.
Thank you, Chip. We now have about 2 minutes for each of the presenters to respond to anything in particular that has been raised by Betty or Cora. And I'm going to start with you, Tabby, at this end, and then when you're done, I'll give you the nod, and then if you can just pass it along to you, sir, please.
But stand up.
Stand up?
People can see you in the back.
Probably is better to go right to the mic, eh?
Don't worry.
So talking a little bit more about organizing and developing a peace leadership camp through VOW in Brazil. So aspects that we're going to be keeping from the peace camp in BC include the workshops, the presenters, in terms of rounding up some of the women in local politics and activism, and network of women for the local women there. So considerations and adaptations and aims in terms of the cultural context that we will be in. Social divides are extremely pronounced in Brazil, as is cultural oppression. I can't get into it too much here, but I'd love to talk to you about it afterwards if you have questions. So we're going to be really focusing on inclusion, getting women from different social backgrounds, ethnic backgrounds, social class, and really to include a diverse group of women and women who don't generally mix at all in the Brazilian culture in any way, shape, or form, and really getting them together in the same rooms in the same camp. And also no fees in order to eliminate the financial barriers. As well, we're bringing margins to center, something that we did in my research as well, featuring and highlighting Afro-Brazilian and indigenous Brazilian perspectives to increase awareness, reduce ignorance and stereotyping that exists widely in Brazil for those cultures. So practical day-to-day peace-building strategies will be focused on more than we did in the BC camp, which we did focus on in Canada, but we'll need to really engage those even more in Brazil for the women to engage in personal safety and things like that, and practical ways that they can build peace in their lives and in their communities. Security and not camping, we won't be camping there, and the duration will be a little longer in order to create that integration. So yes, okay, I need to stop now. Thank you.
And maybe since you, sir, please. So just to remind everybody, we're now having these brief responses, thought or specific, to Cora and to Betty. Open dialogue, and then we'll open it right up to the entire audience.
Thank you so much, and thanks, Prof. Betty and Prof. Cora, and all of the amazing women who just spoke. And it's really an honor to be in this panel and with just incredible women who have been doing a lot of work. I just want to start my response by quoting Prof. Betty once again. If there is a question, there is a possibility. And I guess the question here is that, can we really work to build peace in every single community that we are in, or in every single field that we are in, be it everything. Like, it is not really constrained in one structure or in one form. It could be in any place and in any shape or form. The other thing that I really want to, I see some people having their laptops and phones and stuff like this on. How many are live tweeting? If you're, thanks. So if you are not live tweeting and you do live tweets sometimes, or you use Twitter, please do so, because it's better to get our message viral. And by the way, the mainstream media, they will be forced to pick up our message if they see us all saying the same thing. So if everyone says the same thing on Twitter, then they're just forced to do it. They're just forced to report on it. So do so. Just force them to do it. It's good sometimes to use force, yeah.
But not force.
Yeah, the hashtag is CSW58. And by the way, yeah, thanks, Kasia, for reminding me. Our Twitter is @VowPeace, and please follow the Twitter. And I'm gonna see how many of you have followed. So I will keep the counting. So you have to.
Thank you very much, you sir. The Vow Peace hashtag is V as in Victor, O-W, Peace, P-E-A-C-E. And now I'd like to invite Jennifer for her response.
Thank you.
It's the handle @VowPeace.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Cora and Betty. I teared up when you were talking. I'm so emotional today. I don't know what's happening, but it's very exciting to be here. I have 2 points. So first of all, one of you mentioned about how we need to consider how our work substantively links to demilitarization and disarmament. When I look at the peacemakers camps and what we did there, it resonates with me that we need to work systemically. So we need to work individually, in relationships, and how those relationships go nationally, internationally, and hopefully that's going to have a ripple effect on how we even conceptualize war and military and what we're doing. So I think that's a very first step, as well as looking at challenging the socio-cultural norms that are really increasing the prevalence of this violence. My focus has been gender-based violence, and looking at those kind of issues and how we combat that. And education is the first step to that. We need to be aware of the issues before we can even voice our opinions. So it's really, raising awareness and figuring that out. I'm speaking really quick, sorry. And you also mentioned about the institutions that need to follow the social acceptance and the social change that comes with it. I've used this example, I've actually used it in another session, about in Newfoundland, if you are a perpetrator of abuse against a woman or child, you might get maybe 6 months in jail, probably get probation, not very serious at all, just a little tap on the wrist. But if you shoot a moose without a license, or you poach a fish, you will actually get your truck taken, you'll get your house taken, and you'll probably get 10 years in jail. So how can we even begin to address the social acceptability if we don't look at the institutions that place more value on a moose's life than the life of a woman or a child? So I think that's really fundamental. So thank you.
Be well aware of the fact that we have an epidemic of missing and murdered women in our country. The vast majority of them are of Aboriginal origin. And on this point of terrible, terrible irony, our federal government did call an inquiry into the problem of missing salmon in the waters of British Columbia, but has consistently refused to call an inquiry, a federal inquiry, into missing and murdered women in Canada. And now if we could move please to Jasmine and Jana, who actually come from one of the provinces in Canada with the highest number of missing and murdered women of Aboriginal origin.
Thanks, Mary Lou. I was going to talk about that.
There's more.
Yeah. Well, after listening to what Betty Reardon was saying about the new ways to think about demilitarization, because I have to admit that those aren't words that often come through my head when I'm thinking about my work in peace building. But definitely when we're thinking about contemporary, what it means to demilitarize in the contemporary world and in our local settings, it'll always look different. And for us, it really is about integrating with the different communities and challenging our government pressuring our government to look into missing and murdered Aboriginal women in Manitoba and in Canada. So this is something, if you're live tweeting, you should tweet that right now. And that's something that I can say that Jana and myself, I want to say this, we worked for an organization called the Youth Peace Building Project, and that was set up so that 1/3 of the participants were established Canadians, 1/3 was newcomer youth, and then 1/3 was Indigenous folks. And that was a really strong influence in my life, and I'm sure I can speak for both of us, in learning about how to be effective change makers and doing demilitarization on the ground.
Yeah, I guess we're splitting the time, so we've got to be really conscious of it. But a lot of the work that we've put into the modules comes from our experience with the Youth Peace Building Project, which is modeled off of Seeds for Peace, which is a camp that goes on, I think, in this part of the States. And it's been incredible to bring different identity groups because, as I think you said, Jennifer, we are all experts in our experiences, and it allows young people to come together and to share these experiences and feel confident in sharing them. And I think also, Betty, you talked a little bit about, changing relationships, changing institutions, and we believe so strongly in this making its way into institutions. We worked with some teachers last week and shared this with them, and we're hoping to bring this into schools on a very formal level. So hopefully that will be on the, will be the start of a new relationship. But I also wanted to mention, again, what both of you are speaking to, but about this time last year, I sat down for lunch with my grandma, and I was telling her, she's 81, and I was telling her about what I'm involved with, and she said, well, really? You mean Val? And it turns out that she was one of the founding members in the 60s, and she is from a rural town in Manitoba, and they used to pack the car with all these women. They would go protest for nuclear disarmament, and both of us agreed that although the face maybe is different of our realities as women, behind is still the same vicious monster. So that's where I'm ending.
I have questions for everybody, but in the interest of time, I will just do Jasmine and Janet, because you are taking this work into the schools. So round one is introducing what you have into the schools. Smashing success. What's round two? Where do you think you're going to go from where you are now with this?
This because I suddenly felt this like, uh-oh, what is round two? Oh no. And we've talked a lot about this, but we're lucky to have good relationships with teachers in some of the school divisions, and we believe that a program like this is not successful unless the facilitators and those who are delivering the program believe strongly in what they're delivering. You can't simply read off a paper and get people to do an activity. then it's just an activity. I think to make it meaningful and transformational, it's important to train teachers. And so that is, yeah, that's something that we are interested in. I'll just quickly say, I mentioned that I'll be developing a Peacemakers Camp in May in Newfoundland. And through that, I'm very much a person who likes to write things down. I think that's really important to sharing a legacy or carrying things on. So I am hoping to actually document, the process that we go through. And I know it's very different among cultures and countries and everything like that, but I think the premise of just thinking outside the box, for example, we were talking about funding. One of the avenues that I'm taking for funding is actually through a community wellness grant. I haven't received confirmation yet, but it's about the social determinants of health, which is basically looking at all areas of the individual's health and how violence and other issues can affect it. That's not a traditional source of funding. Usually we just think about, well, I'll go to this organization that deals primarily with violence, but sometimes we have to think of other avenues and really try to capitalize on that.
Many of the youth campers have been blogging about their experience, and I guess maybe it would be useful to check out what they are saying and the reflections. But however, I think that in every single place there are some priorities that the youth and the women are having. So it cannot be the idea is there, but I don't think there has to be replication. The general idea is there, but the need for the workshop, there has been social media workshop in our camp, but maybe in other place they don't need that social media workshop. Maybe they need some other workshop. So I do advise everyone to check out the website vowpeace.
Another country is hooking in with the women through VOW. This is an amazingly powerful network of incredible women who are so supportive. I mean, my thesis advisors and my master's professors told me, oh, well, you're really going to try and change the world. That's not going to happen. And then hearing these women here just say what they said to me, it just fed the fire that I have inside of myself to go and do something, because those voices, I don't listen to them, and I listen to the ones that are supporting me in this movement. Really will empower you. Another thing, I'm going to be talking to the ambassador of Brazil. Hopefully, I'm knocking down on his door. I'm talking to him in Portuguese. I'm talking to his secretaries. I'm talking to the mission of Brazil to the United Nations, because this is an important issue. Women, it's because part of me says, oh, well, they're not going to think that this is an important issue. This is a very important issue. We do need to build peace in the slums of Brazil, in the entire country. So it's worth going to important people and talking about this and getting the support. It's a worthy movement, so don't ever think that it isn't.
Okay. Thank you very much. I have a question here, and that is, what kind of outreach do you initially do to interest young women in participating in the peace camps? So very specific technical question, what kind of outreach, what kind of advertising, networking, etc.? I'm going to ask the panelists to respond very briefly, please, to just that question, and then we'll be able to take some more questions that have come in.
How do you reach out
Okay, how do I reach out?
to get new campers?
Okay, yes, sorry. How do I reach out to get new campers? I'm a member of Rotary. We're working with some Rotarians in the location locally, as well as Rotarians in Canada. Through the youth project that I direct, we're also connecting with a lot of youth who are very interested in participating in the camp, because it is very similar to some of the things that we offer, but in a more concentrated manner, and a very new, diverse opportunity of learning. So, yes.
Okay, so part of that answer is